The morning that should not have begun. Morning is supposed to be gentle. It is meant to arrive softly, like a promise whispered by the sun. Birds sing, light spills across the walls, and the world wakes with a sense of renewal. But there are mornings that do not belong to the natural order, mornings that arrive heavy, rotten, and wrong. This is the story of such a morning. A morning that should never have started. It began at exactly 5:17 a.m. No alarm rang, no rooster crowed, no bird dared to sing. Arif's eyes snapped open as if someone had screamed his name directly into his skull. His heart pounded violently, breath caught in his throat, and sweat soaked his sheets though the air was cold. For a moment, he lay frozen, staring at the ceiling of his small apartment, trying to understand why he was awake. Something felt off. The silence was unnatural, thick like a suffocating blanket pressed against his ears. He slowly sat up. Outside his window, the sky was not dark, but it was not light either. It was a dull, sickly gray, as if dawn had started and then lost the will to continue. The sun was nowhere to be seen, yet the darkness of night had already retreated. Time itself seemed confused. Arif checked his phone. 5:17 a.m. No notifications. No signal. The battery showed 100%, even though he clearly remembered charging it only halfway the night before. He frowned, an uneasy chill crawling up his spine. Then he heard it. A sound. Not loud, not sharp. A breathing sound. Slow, wet, close. He held his breath and listened. The sound was coming from inside the room. Arif's eyes darted around. His apartment was small. Bed, table, chair, wardrobe, a narrow hallway leading to the bathroom. Nothing seemed out of place. Yet the breathing continued, uneven and strained, like someone struggling to pull air into rotting lungs. "Hello," he whispered. The breathing stopped instantly. The silence that followed was worse. Arif stood up, every muscle tense, and walked slowly toward the bathroom. The door was half open. Darkness pooled inside like thick ink. He reached for the switch. Before he could touch it, the bathroom mirror spoke. "You woke up too early." The voice was not loud. It was calm, familiar. It was his own voice. Arif stumbled back, crashing into the bed. His heart felt like it might burst out of his chest. The mirror reflected nothing but darkness, yet the voice continued, echoing softly through the apartment. "You weren't supposed to wake up during the first morning." What is this?" Arif stammered. The mirror light flickered on by itself. His reflection stared back at him, but it was wrong. Its eyes were sunken, ringed with black veins. Its mouth hung slightly open, lips cracked and bleeding. Worst of all, the reflection was smiling, while Arif was not. "The morning has started," the reflection said. "And now it must finish." The mirror suddenly shattered outward, glass exploding across the room. Arif screamed and covered his face. When the sound stopped and he opened his eyes, the mirror was whole again, as if nothing had happened. But the reflection was gone. Only the empty bathroom stared back at him. Arif ran. He grabbed his jacket, shoes, keys, anything he could, and rushed out of the apartment. The hallway lights flickered weakly. The building was silent, too silent. No footsteps, no voices, no distant traffic sounds. He reached the stairs. They were gone. In their place was a long corridor stretching impossibly far, its walls stained with dark handprints, the ceiling sagging as if weighed down by something unseen. At the far end, a faint orange glow pulsed slowly, like a dying heartbeat. Arif backed away, his mind screaming that this was impossible. Then he heard footsteps. Behind him. Slow, heavy, wet. He turned. A woman stood at the end of the hallway where the stairs had once been. She wore a pale nightgown soaked in something dark. Her hair covered her face completely, hanging down in tangled clumps. Her head was tilted at an unnatural angle, neck bent too far to the side. She took one step forward. The lights flickered. Another step. "Good morning," she whispered, her voice layered with many others beneath it. Arif bolted back into his apartment and slammed the door shut. He locked it, pressed his back against it, gasping for breath. His phone buzzed in his hand. A notification. Unknown sender. The first morning always looks like this. His hands shook as he typed back. "Arif, who are you?" The reply came instantly. "Someone who woke up before you." The walls began to bleed. Thin red lines seeped from the corners, dripping slowly onto the floor. The ceiling groaned. The light bulb flickered violently, then burst, plunging the apartment into gray half-light from the windows. Outside, the sky had changed. It was no longer gray. It was red. The sun hung low and massive, distorted and pulsating, like a giant infected wound in the sky. Its light did not warm. It burned cold, casting long, twisted shadows that moved independently of their owners. Arif stepped toward the window. The street below was filled with people. They stood perfectly still. Men, women, children, all staring upward, all smiling, all bleeding from their eyes. One by one, they slowly turned their heads and looked directly at Arif. Every mouth opened at once. "Come outside," they said in unison. The door behind him began to knock. Softly at first, then harder, then violently. The woman's voice seeped through the cracks. "Morning doesn't like being ignored." Arif collapsed to the floor, clutching his head. His memories began to blur. He tried to remember yesterday, last night, anything normal. But there was nothing. Only another memory surfaced. A memory of a warning. A note he had once found slipped under his door weeks ago. He had laughed it off then, assuming it was a prank. The words echoed clearly now. "When the morning starts before the sun, do not wake up." The knocking stopped. Silence again. Arav slowly looked up. The apartment was gone. He stood in the middle of a vast open field covered in dead grass. The red sun loomed above. In the distance stood countless houses, identical, stretching endlessly. Each had lights on inside. Each window held a face. Watching, waiting. A voice boomed across the sky, deep and ancient. This is the first morning. Arav fell to his knees. What do you want from me? He screamed. The ground cracked beneath him, revealing darkness below, writhing, breathing darkness filled with whispering mouths. To remember, the voice said. The memories flooded back. He remembered waking up early before. Many times. He remembered ignoring the signs. He remembered dying, over and over, every time the morning restarted. Every time he failed to stay asleep. Every time the sun rose wrong. You are not alive, the voice continued. You are the alarm. The red sun split open. Something massive began to crawl out. Arav screamed as the world collapsed into darkness. 5:17 a.m. Arav's eyes snapped open. Birds sang outside. Golden sunlight filled the room. His alarm rang cheerfully. For a moment, everything seemed normal. Then he noticed the message on his phone. Unknown sender. You woke up again. From the mirror, his reflection smiled. And the morning began. The alarm did not stop ringing. It screamed, shrill and endless, drilling into Arav's skull like a living thing. He slapped at his phone, knocking it onto the floor, but the sound did not stop. The ringing continued from everywhere, from the walls, the ceiling, even from inside his own chest. When it finally ceased, the silence that followed felt swollen, ready to burst. Morning light still filled the room, but it had changed. The golden warmth had thinned into something pale and sick, like light filtered through dirty water. Dust floated in the air, unmoving, frozen in mid-fall. Outside the window, birds were perched on the power lines, their beaks open as if singing, but no sound came out. Arav sat up slowly. His reflection in the mirror across the room was already sitting up. It turned its head before he did. You're late, it said calmly. Arav squeezed his eyes shut and reopened them. The reflection was still there, still wrong. Its eyes were too clear, too aware. It leaned closer to the glass, pressing its palms against the surface from the inside. This is the second morning, it continued. They get worse from here. What are you? Arav whispered. The reflection smiled wider. I'm what's left of you after the mornings are done. The mirror began to crack, thin fractures crawling like veins across its surface. With a sharp sound, the reflection stepped out of the glass and onto the floor. It was solid, real. It smelled of damp earth and old blood. Arav backed away until his legs hit the bed. You don't remember dying yet, the double said. That's normal. Memory comes later. The walls trembled. From outside came a new sound, footsteps. Hundreds of them, thousands, marching in slow, perfect rhythm. Arav rushed to the window. The street was filled again. But the people were no longer standing still. They were walking, all in the same direction. All toward his building. Their faces were peaceful, almost joyful, as blood streamed freely from their eyes, noses, and mouths. Some dragged limbs behind them. Others walked with their heads bent backward, staring at the sky as they moved. At the front of the crowd walked the woman in the nightgown. Her hair had fallen away from her face now. She had no eyes, only deep, black holes that leaked thick, dark fluid down her cheeks. She looked straight at Arav. And waved. The knock at the door came again, polite this time. Controlled. Morning check, dozens of voices said together. Arav turned to his double. Help me. The double tilted its head. Why would I do that? I survived longer by not helping. The door handle began to turn on its own. The air inside the apartment grew heavy, pressing down on Arav's lungs. He couldn't breathe properly. The light flickered, casting long shadows that twisted into unnatural shapes, stretching across the floor toward him. Suddenly, the double grabbed Arav's wrist. Listen carefully, it said, its voice dropping to a whisper. There are rules. You didn't ask last time. That's why you failed. What rules? Arav gasped. The double raised one finger. Rule 1. Never look at the sun after the first morning. It raised a second. Rule 2. If someone greets you in the morning, do not answer. A third finger lifted. Rule 3. Do not let the woman touch you. A fourth, and the last rule, it said softly, when you hear yourself calling your name, don't respond. The door burst open. The people poured in. They moved like one body, stepping over each other, filling the room, their mouths opening and closing silently. Their shadows detached from their feet and slithered along the walls like living things. The woman stepped inside last. She raised her hand and pointed at Arav. Awake, she said. The word slammed into Arav's chest like a hammer. The world shattered. Arav woke up on the floor of a school classroom. Sunlight streamed through barred windows. Dust danced in the air. Old desks lay overturned. The blackboard was covered with writing, his handwriting. Do not sleep. Do not wake. Wait for the third morning. Children sat at the desks. All facing him, all with their heads sewn shut with thick black thread. Their fingers tapped in perfect rhythm on the desks. Tap, tap, tap. A bell rang. A teacher entered the room. It was Arav, older, thinner, eyes hollow. Class, the teacher said, smiling, today we learn what happens when morning never ends. The children turned their stitched faces toward Arav. And began to scream, without mouths. The windows darkened. The sun outside moved backward in the sky. The bell rang again. 5:17 a.m. Arav gasped awake. His phone lay on his chest. A new message blinked on the screen. Unknown sender. Only 2 mornings left. From somewhere in the room, very softly, his own voice whispered his name. Arav.